because we're willing to share the truth with you as we focus our platform on educating America, our young black people, and our young black men and women and our children about black history, and also to keep you up on current events in the black community, and to make sure that as we go into these midterms that we are educated, especially as black men and women going to the polls on what we are going to vote for, the young black men and women especially.
Yes.
And so we are going to talk tonight about Thurgood Marshall. That's going to be our lesson tonight. And then we're going to have to talk about what's going on with the voting and the redistricting. And so that will be our show tonight. We welcome your comments. Please be respectful. Before we get started, though, we want to take a moment to honor a civil rights icon, author, and Dr. Martin Luther King's close advisor by the name of Clarence B. Jones. He passed away this week, and he helped in the writing of the famous I Have a Dream speech. He passed away on May 22nd, 2026 at the age of 95 years old. So we would like to take a moment of silence for Clarence B. Jones. Join us in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's Sharr with tonight's history lesson, Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you, Will. Welcome, everybody. As my husband already mentioned, we are glad that you are here tonight with us on this platform. And our topic, as my husband already mentioned, as Will already mentioned, is going to be Thurgood Marshall. We are going to be doing some comparison here with Thurgood Marshall and the now seated judge in the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas as well. Okay, so join us with this, and here we go. Thurgood Marshall. All right, so Thurgood Marshall was born on July the 2nd in 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. His father, William Marshall, worked as a railroad porter and steward, and his mother, Norma Marshall, worked as a teacher. Thurgood Marshall was one of the most important lawyers, civil rights activists, and judges in American history. He dedicated his life to fighting racial segregation, discrimination, and unequal treatment under the law. His legal victories helped dismantle legalized segregation in the United States and transform the modern civil rights movement. His family emphasized education, discipline, and awareness of the United States Constitution. Marshall later said that many of his debates with his father about justice and law helped shape his thinking. How important it is, Will, for parents to be involved in their children's lives, and how important it is for parents to be the role model in the homes. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think that, we just send our kids off to school and they get their education, but we have to interact with our children. Yes. Just like Thurgood Marshall's parents interacted with him. They set the example for him. Okay. They got him interested in becoming a lawyer and fighting for what was right. His family emphasized education, discipline, and awareness of the United States Constitution. Marshall later said that many of his debates with his father about justice and law helped shape his thinking. We want to say hi to Jane Doe, and also, yes, hi, Jane Doe. Welcome. Growing up during the era of Jim Crow segregation, Marshall experienced racial discrimination firsthand, which included Black people faced separate schools, housing, transportation, and public facilities. Violence and intimidation against African Americans were widespread. Mm-hmm. Voting rights and equal opportunities were often denied. These experiences deeply influenced his desire to become a lawyer and fight injustice. Okay. Education. Marshall attended Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore, Lincoln University at Lincoln University, and he studied alongside future influential Black leaders, including Kwame Nkrumah and Cab Calloway. After graduating in 1930, Marshall applied to the segregated University of Maryland School of Law, and he was rejected because he was Black. Instead, he attended Howard University School of Law, where he studied under the legendary civil rights lawyer, Charles Hamilton Houston. Houston became Marshall's mentor and taught him that the law could be used as a weapon against racial injustice. Okay. And so we see here, Will, that, whatever it is that we want to obtain in life, or whatever we want to pursue in life, whether it be education and higher learning, that there is always somebody there that helps us to get to the place where we want to get to. Nothing we do is on our own. Okay. And so we have to remember, the things that we go through in life, there's always somebody there to help us, to mentor us along the way, to encourage us along the way. And this is exactly what Thurgood Marshall had. Okay. When it came to Charles Hamilton Houston, he encouraged him, to pursue and to go forth in his seeking to get a degree as a lawyer.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt. We want to say hi to recognize Grayson Gothert. We want to say hi to you. And Jane Doan, she says, hi, I'm gay. I don't know if she means that she's happy, or that sometimes she gets depressed, or she's trying to tell her something else. But if it's something else, we'll be praying for you, Jane. You don't have to stay in that condition.
Amen.
So don't worry. We'll be praying for you that you come out of that, and according to the word of God.
Yes.
So thanks for letting us know that we need to pray for you on that. Okay. Go. And like you said, he was inspired.
Yes.
Young about, and it's interesting because when you look at Black men, I don't want to say that Black people today, but Black men that don't want to go to school. I would see these men that we covered, and women, but most of the men, they wanted to go to school. They had a passion for going to school and to learning and to getting an education. And it seems like as we go down the line, this generation today is not really concerned about that. We know we have a lot that have the thug life style, some that are out in the streets, some that are doing caught up in the gang banging, and that's what we need to pray for our young people, especially our men.
Exactly.
To go out there. We see a lot of crimes being committed against Black women by Black men. And this is not good. And these men that we see here, they had a passion. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to make something of themselves. And I think that that's something that is really interesting. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's okay, Will. Thank you. But we got to remember to encourage our children, our grandchildren, that knowledge is power, okay? And it's important for them to get the best of education that they can get. And it's important that they, that parents and people rally around them. Good mentors rally around our young people today and help them to get to from point A to point B to where they're trying to get to. Hello, Harold. We want to say hi to you as well. We want to ask you, Victor, please watch your comments and the type of language that you use in our program, because we are first saved, and I always try to let people know that. Okay, so we're going to go on with this. It says his early legal career. We're talking about Thurgood Marshall, okay? So after graduating from Harvard in 1933, Marshall opened a law practice in Baltimore. He soon began working with the NAACP. Marshall became one of the NAACP's top lawyers and eventually its chief counsel. His mission was clear: to challenge segregation legally, defend Black Americans denied constitutional rights, and use the courts to dismantle Jim Crow laws. Fighting segregation, strategy against separate but equal at the time. Segregation was legally protected by the Supreme Court decision, Plessy versus Ferguson. That ruling claimed separate but equal facilities were constitutional. Marshall and the NAACP argued separate facilities were never truly equal. Segregation itself harmed Black Americans psychologically, socially, and economically. The Constitution's Equal Protection Clause prohibited racial segregation. Now, I'm going to stop there for a minute because we know that we're living in a time right now with this president that's in office today, and those that are over him. And I always mention Stephen Miller and Robert, founder of the Heritage Foundation. We know they pushed this thing of the Project 2025 to try to roll back a lot of the civil rights and the freedoms of Black people in this country. And we know that God is going to stand with us and he's going to fight for us on behalf of these things. Now, one thing that Trump did when he got in office is he tried to push again or take away the civil rights, where he's trying to push that Blacks go into one bathroom and whites use another bathroom, that Blacks drink from one water fountain and the whites drink from another one. Okay, he's causing division in this country. Okay, he's pushing segregation in this country once again. All the things that we've tried to overcome in the last 100 years, he's trying to bring back. And so we need to stand up in this country for our democracy, for our rights, for our freedoms. Because just like we saw Clarence B. Jones, that helped to pen the I Have a Dream speech with Dr. Martin Luther King, passed away this week, okay? And so we need to stand up for the things that our ancestors fought for when it comes to the civil rights, when it comes to our civil liberties, when it comes to our freedoms in this country. We need to stand up for those things. And it's never too late to do that. Even though we see some things being rolled back, even though we see them pushing the gerrymandering in different places, different states and whatnot have you, we need to stand up and rise together as a people in this country that will not allow our democracy and our freedoms to be ripped and torn away from us, okay? And this is what Thurgood Marshall was fighting for as well. Fighting segregation, strategy against separate but equal at the time. Segregation was legally protected by the Supreme Court decision Plessy versus Ferguson, and that ruling claimed separate but equal facilities were constitutional. Marshall and the NAACP argued separate facilities were never truly equal. Segregation itself harmed Black Americans psychologically, socially, and economically. The Constitution Equal Protection Clause prohibited racial segregation. His major legal victories: Murray versus Pearson in 1936. Marshall helped force the University of Maryland Law School to admit Black students. This was personally meaningful because the same school had rejected him. Mm-hmm. Smith versus Allwright in 1944. These are some of his major legal victories. Marshall successfully challenged white-only Democratic primaries in the South. This expanded Black voting rights dramatically. Shelley versus Kramer in 1948. Marshall helped strike down racially restrictive housing covenants that prevented Black families from buying homes in certain neighborhoods. Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. Brown versus Board of Education became Marshall's most famous victory. Marshall argued before the U.S. Supreme Court that segregated schools violated the Constitution. The court unanimously ruled that separation educational facilities are inherently unequal. This decision overturned Plessy versus Ferguson in public education and became a cornerstone of the civil rights movement. It opened the door to desegregation nationwide, and Brown versus Board of Education is considered one of the greatest Supreme Court decisions in American history. This man has a legacy that he has left behind, where he used the law to turn and overthrow a lot of things that were passed in the Supreme Court system against African American people. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Marshall helped build the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. The organization became one of the most powerful legal forces for civil rights in the United States. Marshall argued 32 cases before the Supreme Court and won 29 of them, an extraordinary record. You have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add when he went to the first winning about the desegregation of separate but equal, he used the strategy when he went to the secondary schools that he didn't use this separate but equal clause because he knew that that probably would be a little less effective than using what he used, saying that it was psychological. He brought in experienced medical doctors, psychologists, to come in and testify of the effects of education. He was saying that they were not being provided an equal education. And he used that strategy, and that's one of the main things that helped him get that victory over the Brown versus the Board of Education.
That's good, Will. Thank you. Yes, he did. Okay, so federal government service. The United States Court of Appeals. In 1961, John F. Kennedy appointed Marshall to the United States Court of Appeals. Many senators tried to block him because of his civil rights work. Solicitor General. In 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson appointed Marshall as the United States Solicitor General. He became the first Black American to hold the position. The first Black Supreme Court Justice in 1967. President Lyndon Johnson nominated Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court of the United States. Marshall became the first African American Supreme Court Justice in the United States history, and he served from 1967 to 1991. Marshall's judicial philosophy. Marshall believed the Constitution should protect human dignity, equal rights, voting rights, freedom of speech, due process, the poor and marginalized, and he strongly opposed the death penalty, racial discrimination, and government abuses of power. Marshall often warned that civil rights progress could be reversed if Americans became complacent. Do you understand that? He said Marshall often warned that civil rights progress could be reversed if Americans became complacent. And this is why we are where we are today, because a lot of us got too comfortable. Okay. A lot of Blacks felt like they didn't have to get out and vote in the last election for the presidency. So a lot of our Black people just sat the couch, whereas another 2 million of our Black people, men and women, went out and voted for this man that we have in office today. And look at the damage that's being done because of this vote. Okay? We cannot sit back and get complacent when it comes to the things that our ancestors fought for us in this country. And we must stand up. And again, too, I'll say, Will, and that is that the Democrats got complacent as well. Okay? And so we can't just sit back fiddling our thumbs. We can't just sit back and just relax on the couch and feel like there's nothing left to do. There is so much more to fight for when it comes to civil rights, when it comes to our freedoms, when it comes to our liberties. We still have ICE out here harassing people. Okay? Whether y'all know it or not, they're not going anywhere. They're out here harassing people. And that's wrong. And we need to stand up and speak out. Okay? Let's not get complacent. People have lost their lives because of ICE. We're losing our freedoms at the hands of this incompetent president that's in office. Okay? And so all this sitting back and doing nothing and waiting for somebody else to do it, that's over with. We have to get to it, and we have to get busy, and we have to do what we need to do, to gain our ground back when it comes to our civil rights and our freedoms and our liberties here in America. It says the relationship to the civil rights movement. Marshall's work laid legal foundations for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, while activists protested in streets and organized boycotts. in streets. Marshall fought inside courtrooms. His victories gave legal power to the broader movement. Criticism and challenges. Marshall faced racism, death threats, political attacks, and attempts to block his appointments. Some black activists later criticized the legal system as too slow and limited. More militant groups in the 1960s sometimes believed court victories alone were not enough. Still, Marshall remained committed to constitutional law and gradual legal reform. Okay, he didn't let anything stop him. He still pursued what was necessary to try to fight against the system with the law to overthrow a lot of these things that were going to be harmful to Black Americans and Black people in general. And not just the Black people, but the marginalized people, the poor, the needy. Okay? He fought with the law. And sometimes things take time, even though some of his constituents did not want to wait, you know. But he, like I said before, he left a large legacy. Let's read on. His personal life, Marshall married Vivian Busterbury, who died in 1955, and Cecilia Sissy Suyet. He had two sons. Despite becoming a national figure, he remained known for sharp humor and his direct speaking style, love of storytelling, and his deep commitment to ordinary people. His retirement and death. Marshall retired from the Supreme Court in 1991 because of declining health. He died on January 24th, 1993 at the age of 84. And after his death, leaders across political lines honored him. He was remembered as a defender of democracy and equality, and his influence continued through modern civil rights law. The lasting effect and impact that Thurgood Marshall left changed America in several major ways. Destroying legal segregation, his victories helped dismantle Jim Crow laws, expanded constitutional rights. He strengthened interpretations of equal protection and civil liberties. He opened doors. His success inspired generations of Black lawyers and judges, scholars, and activists. Proving the law could be a tool for justice, Marshall believed the Constitution belonged to all Americans, not just the powerful. I'm going to read that one again. Marshall believed, okay, that the Constitution belonged to all Americans and not just the powerful. And so what we're seeing today, Will, is that fight with the 1% coming against those that are up under them, okay? The 90 whatever percent that's left, the 92%, 99%, they're coming against us, okay? So it's like the rich against the poor, the rich against the middle class, the rich white supremacists against blacks all over again in this country. And it should not be so, because we've come so far. Why would you want to turn things around now? Why would you want to tear down Black people, our history? Why does this president and those that are over him want to come against the civil rights and the things that we have fought so hard to obtain down through the years? And that's going to be a video for another time, okay? His historical significance. Thurgood Marshall is widely remembered as the architect of the legal battle against segregation, one of the greatest Supreme Court advocates ever, a central figure in modern American democracy. He was also a bridge between constitutional law and the civil rights movement. Without Marshall's work, many of the legal victories of the civil rights era may have taken far longer to achieve. Marshall's personality and character. He was known for being fearless, extremely intelligent, sharp-tongued, funny and sarcastic, and deeply compassionate toward ordinary people. Unlike some leaders who spoke mainly in churches or rallies, Marshall fought in the courtrooms and legal offices and hostile southern towns where Black lawyers risked violence or death. He often traveled through the segregated South, investigating cases involving lynching, police brutality, wrongful convictions, voter suppression. And at times, the NAACP lawyers had to secretly leave towns at night for safety. Would we have a lot of these sundown towns where black people are not allowed to be there after the sun goes down? Mm-hmm. What a shame in this country for the prejudice. Okay? What a shame in this country for the racism and the hatred that is still here. My God. It says the influence of Charles Hamilton Houston shaped Marshall's legal philosophy. Houston believed a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. He trained Marshall to attack segregation piece by piece instead of all at once. Their strategy included finding the strongest legal cases, exposing inequality in segregated systems, using the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, building precedents gradually until segregation collapsed. This careful legal strategy became one of the most successful constitutional campaigns in the United States history. White Brown versus Board was revolutionary. Before many Americans believed segregation would last forever. Southern states fiercely defended white supremacy. Public schools across much of America were legally segregated. Brown versus Board of Education changed the moral and legal direction of the country. Marshall's team used constitutional law, sociological evidence, psychological research, and one famous study showed black children in segregated schools often internalized feelings of inferiority because society treated whiteness as superior. The court's ruling declared that segregation damaged children and violated equality under the Constitution. So we see that even though Thurgood Marshall ran into a lot of problems where he was threatened, okay? His life was at stake at a lot of what he was trying to do as far as changing the laws, okay? And using the law against a lot of the racial discrepancies that were against African-American people. He put his life on the line, just like many of our civil rights and freedom fighters did. They put their lives on the line, okay, in order to fight for our freedom, in order to gain our civil liberties, in order to gain our civil rights. And today, here we are, back at square one, trying to do the same thing where we're standing up, where we're speaking out, where we're calling our congressmen and women, okay, where we need the lawyers and the judges to stand with us, okay, so that this administration and this president will not roll back the things that we have fought for and the things that our ancestors have fought for when it comes to our civil rights and stuff, so we don't have to go back to that era again. That was one of the worst eras. It was a good era, but it was also the worst era, because it brought out the strength in us. It brought out the unity in the black people. And not only that, people of other races as well stood with our people during that time. The resistance to Brown. Even after Brown, many southern states refused to integrate schools. Some governors openly defied federal law. White citizens' councils formed to resist desegregation. Black families and students faced threats and violence. Marshall understood court victories alone would not instantly change society. The struggle required activists and organizers, churches, federal enforcement, and continued legal pressure. Martial and criminal justice. This cannot be won by just our black people. We need people to stand with us. And I said this before, we need the white people, we need the Latinos, we need the Asian communities. We need to all come together and fight this thing, okay? Or we are going to be brought under a communist type country where one person thinks that he can tell everybody else what we need to do, how we need to live, and what not have you. We need everybody to stand up and to stand together. Marshall also fought against unfair criminal prosecutions of Black Americans. He challenged all white juries, forced confessions, racist sentencing, and unequal treatment in courts. He believed the justice system often treated poor black citizens as less human. This concern stayed with him on the Supreme Court. His views on the Constitution. Marshall rejected the idea that the Constitution should only be interpreted exactly as people understood it in the 1700s. He argued the Constitution must evolve toward greater justice. America's founding ideas were incomplete at first because slavery and inequality existed. Later amendments and civil rights struggles expanded democracy. One of the most famous speeches criticized romanticized views of the Constitution's founding. The government formed in 1787 was defective from the start because it tolerated slavery and excluded many people from full citizenship. This was controversial, but many scholars saw it as an honest assessment of American history. What is our president doing today with a lot of the people that are trying to get citizenship here or get a green card? He's sending them back to their own countries where they have to get their green card, wait there in their own country to get their green card to be able to be a citizen of America. Am I right about that one? Mm-hmm. So Marshall and the death penalty. Thurgood Marshall became one of the court's strongest opponents of capital punishment, and he argued the death penalty was applied unfairly. Race-influenced sentencing, poor defendants lacked proper legal defense, and executions violated human dignity. He believed many Americans supported executions partly because they did not fully understand how unjustly the system operated. Relationship with other black leaders. Marshall respected many civil rights leaders, but sometimes differed with them. With Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. focused on mass protests, nonviolent direct action, public moral pressure, while Marshall focused on courtroom battles, constitutional law, and legal precedents. Together, their approaches complemented one another. See, we can agree to disagree, okay? Because it says together, their approaches complemented one another. We're not going to agree on everything all the time, but we should all be focused on one goal.
One common goal.
Yes, one common goal, and that is to stand up, to stand out, to speak up, go vote, put your vote in, come the midterms. If you want to see a turnaround, if you want to see a change in this country, we need everybody to get out and go vote, okay? With Black Power activists in the late 1960s, some younger activists became frustrated with gradual legal reform, and groups associated with Black Power demanded faster structural change. We have young people out here today saying they're not going to vote unless they get reparations. How that's very ignorant, okay? In order to get reparations, you need to go put your vote in for the candidate that you want to fight for you to be able to have reparations. Get out and vote, young people. Stop using excuses. This is your future. Many of us will be going on, but you young people will still be here, and we need you to get up and get out and go vote. Vote blue in the midterms. Okay? It says with Black Power activists in the late 1960s, some younger activists became frustrated with gradual legal reform, and groups associated with Black Power demanded faster structural change. Marshall understood the anger caused by racism, but he remained committed to legal institutions and constitutional change rather than revolutionary politics. FBI surveillance and hostility. Like many Black leaders of the era, civil rights organizations, Marshall was monitored by Federal Bureau of Investigation under J. Edgar Hoover. Federal authorities often view civil rights activism with suspicion. Marshall also faced hate mail, threats, racist, political opposition, and yet he continued arguing cases across hostile regions of the country. Again, I say, Will, and I've said this before, why is it when Black people want to stand up and speak out and stand on principle, why do we get attacked for it? Okay? So we see that Thurgood Marshall, you know, he was persecuted for what he was standing up for, but yet he continued It didn't make him back down. It didn't make him crawl into a corner somewhere. He continued to push forward, and we have to continue to push forward as well in this time and in this generation. So Marshall's Supreme Court opinions. As a justice, Marshall consistently defended voting rights, civil liberties, affirmative action, workers' rights, rights of criminal defendants, and freedom of expression. He often wrote passionate dissents, warning that the court could weaken protections for minorities and the poor. Many of his dissents later influenced future legal debates. His historical importance to Black Americans. For many African Americans, Marshall symbolized intellectual resistance to white supremacy, the power of education, legal self-defense, and constitutional citizenship. He proved Black Americans could not only participate in American law, but reshape it. His success inspired Black judges, lawyers, politicians, scholars, activists, including future figures such as Barack Obama. Critiques of Marshall. Some critics argued legal victories did not eliminate economic inequality. Segregation continued in practice even after court and rulings, and structural racism survived beyond Jim Crow laws. Others believe the courts later weakened some gains Marshall fought for. Still, even critics usually acknowledge his extraordinary legal brilliance and courage. His legacy today. Modern debates about voting rights, school inequality, policing, affirmative action, Supreme Court power, and equal protection all connect in some way to the constitutional battles Marshall fought decades ago. His career demonstrated that laws can enforce oppression, but laws can also become tools for liberation. That dual reality shaped his entire life's work. I'm going to go back to what he said there. It says, all connection in some way to the constitutional battles Marshall fought decades ago. His career demonstrated that law can enforce oppression, but laws can also become tools for liberation. That dual reality shaped his entire life's work. One of Marshall's most important beliefs is that Marshall believed democracy only survives when ordinary people defend it actively. Okay? He warned Americans not to assume progress was permanent. That message still resonates today whenever debates arise about civil rights protections, equal justice, constitutional freedoms, and access to voting, and racial equality under the law. Because of this, Thurgood Marshall remains one of the central figures in the history of American democracy and the Black struggle. I'm going to clap on behalf of Thurgood Marshall. A job well done, a legacy, a huge legacy that Thurgood Marshall has left behind for us to follow. Okay? Will?
Yeah, I wanted to add on this. As a justice, Marshall, he defended states' use of affirmative action, the policy of giving preference to minority applicants in college admissions and employment. And he wrote in 1978, for it must be remembered that during most of the past 200 years, the Constitution as interpreted by this court did not prohibit the most ingenuous and pervasive forms of discrimination against the Negro. Now, when a state acts to remedy the effects of that legacy of discrimination, I cannot believe that this same Constitution stands as a barrier. And another thing to note, in 1960, he accepted an invitation from Tom Mboya to help draft the Kenya's constitution. So he was well known even in Africa and the Pan-Africanism movement. So he was indeed a great man. So we're just going to take a moment to compare Thurgood Marshall with someone who is not even close to his equal, and that's Clarence Thomas, who took his seat. It is stated the distinction between Thurgood Marshall and Thomas is not really about whether the court should reverse past decisions, but simply which ones. While Marshall willed the court to become a protector of the powerless, Thompson has, I believe, argued not only to scale that vision back, but to advance the interests of the powerful. He's selling a Sambo.
Wow.
Clarence Thomas is considered the least experienced, least qualified justices in modern times, where Thurgood Marshall was considered probably one of the greatest Supreme
Yes.
Court judges.
Exactly.
In the end, Thomas has opposed the sort of quota-based affirmative action that Marshall supported, explaining that reverse discrimination is not the key to unlocking the door of opportunity for minorities. Thomas once wrote, "In my mind, government-sponsored racial discrimination based on benign prejudice is just as noxious as discrimination inspired by the malicious prejudice." But as I stated a couple of weeks ago, it's a bitter irony is staggering. Clarence Thomas, the black man who replaced Thurgood Marshall, the civil rights giant, Thurgood Marshall that is, the
Yes.
civil rights giants whose legal brilliance helped lay the ground. I mean, he was just brilliant the way he did things.
Yes.
Was competent. The brilliance helped lay the groundwork for the Voting Rights Act, and who, as a U.S. Solicitor General, argued for its constitutionality, could now be one of the deciding votes to dismantle it. And he did. He already dismantled it. He did help dismantle it. Marshall fought to expand democracy. Clarence Thomas has spent his career shrinking it.
Wow.
To betray the legacy of the man whose seat he occupies, and the people whose struggle made your rise possible, is more than hypocrisy; it's historical treason. The showing that he was really the least experienced, really incompetent, showed how affirmative action helped him get in, and
Wow.
now he's opposing it.
Yes.
So hats off
To Thurgood
to Thurgood
Marshall.
Marshall.
Yes.
And then that other guy, Clarence Thomas, we don't even want to say it anymore in the same breath as him, because there's no comparison.
That's good information, Will. And I will say this too. You know, I don't know what it is with Clarence Thomas. You know, I don't want to run him in the ground. We will pray for him because he does need prayer. But, you know, all of us in one way or another, in some form of another, have experienced racism. And maybe he's still in shock from the fact that he's a black man and that he grew up in a time and in an era where, you know, black people were mistreated. You know, I mean, that's just the way things were. But, you know, you don't go to school and learn all that you learn to become a Supreme Court judge or even a lawyer and then sit there and not use your position, your occupation for the good of your brothers and sisters, first of all, black people everywhere, and then for the good of other people. And this is the difference between Clarence Thomas and Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall went to school. He got his lawyer's degree. He got his judge degree, and he, you know, was positioned in both of those different occupations, but he used it for the betterment of the people, and especially black people. So I would say to Clarence Thomas, I don't know what's got you stuck on whatever you're stuck on, but you need to take your position and use your position for the good of black American people. Don't do more harm to your people than you've already done. And so I just want to put that out there to him. So now we're going to just go through our 3 things to remember, and I'll let Will, if he would like to read those.
3 things to remember. Number 1, when one door closes, look for an open window and don't give up.
That's right.
Number 2, whatever you succeed at, use it to help better others. And number 3, do your best, give your best, and be your best. Put your all into whatever change you want to see.
Those are good. Thank you,
Yes.
Will. Okay, so the last thing we have here is our Thurgood Marshall famous quotes, and we have 3 different quotes by Thurgood Marshall. The first one says, quote, "When you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country, this is your democracy. Make it, protect it, and pass it on." Unquote. Number two, quote, in recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute. When you recognize others, when you lift others up, not when you're stepping on them, putting them down, you pay you pay yourself the highest tribute, unquote. And number three, quote, the measure of a country's greatness is its ability to retain compassion in times of crisis, unquote. And that's easily understood, because when things are not going as well or not going good, we got to learn how to be compassionate one to another. Even though Black Americans are right now seems to be the target in the United States, we still have the obligation to be compassionate to our neighbors, to be compassionate to other people as well, okay? Because it's not all white people doing this to us, okay? It's not racism in some races and not in others. And so we got to learn to be compassionate. We got to learn how to treat one another equally, okay? Jesus in the Bible even told us to love our neighbors as we would love ourselves, okay? So I'm going to turn it back over to Will.
Okay, in community news this week, we've had a few things. Down in Texas, they had their primary, and Representative Al Green, he lost a runoff to fellow Democrat Christian Menifee. Now, he had to move over to that district because of the redistricting that the Republican state representatives and the governor did. And so he went and had to run in a different district, and he lost the runoff, so he only has about 9 months left in Congress, but he said he's still going to fight. He's still going to work.
Yes.
Of course, they lost Jasmine Crockett also down to the redistricting. So, but God will work it out.
Yes, he
somehow.
will. Yes.
And speaking of Jasmine Crockett, of course, there is an outcry because they say that she endorsed Wesley Bell over Cori Bush over in Missouri. And they had a big to-do about that. Again, an example of internal conflict. We need to calm down on the internal conflict. Jasmine Crockett has a right to endorse whoever she wants to endorse.
That's right.
And she has a right. They said that when Jasmine Crockett was out there fighting, there wasn't really nobody there to defend.
That's right.
So Jasmine Crockett, there was lies on her, saying that she was bought by the Jewish pack, the Israel pack, and so when she was out there trying to fight, there didn't nobody stand. Then when she went up against Tarico up there as for the Senate runoff, the Democratic Party forsake her then.
Yes.
And so now they're up there fighting or mad because she said she didn't endorse them, but she said there was nobody that could meet the moment, which was basically kind of an endorsement. But she has a right to do that.
Yes.
You know, I looked on some of the comments from one of the former senators here, Nina Turner, on TV, and she, of course, she backed Cori Bush because she has a right to.
Exactly.
I guess they got, but she supported Tarico. She didn't even support her sister, her black sister, when she was running.
Wow.
So, but yet
So
they
sad.
want to argue. And they're saying, well, she should have toned her down. Jasmine Crockett's been like that from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay? So y'all don't say nothing about the tone of anybody else, but her tone is a problem. The Democrats had a problem about her tone. That's why they didn't back her for
Exactly.
the leadership position there. So we need to quit fighting within ourselves.
That's right.
We need to vote blue and get the blue in there, and then once we get in there, then we can work for the common goal.
Yes.
But black people, since the beginning of slavery, have always fought against one another, and we need to stop that.
So true.
And in South Carolina, of course, they did not go through with the redistricting. The Senate there in South Carolina shot it down to a defeat for Trump. And so Jim Clyburn kept his seat. I don't know, I have to see if he won or not. So from what I understand, what I read, after all this redistricting and gerrymandering, the Republicans gained 10 seats. So, but still, it's going to come down to the midterms.
Yes.
The people voting. We've got to come out, especially in the Senate race. The black
Yes.
people, the Democrats got to come out and vote in the Senate to overturn the Senate. And then I still believe we can overturn the House. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to get into the candidates, the main candidates that we need to get educated on,
Yes.
and to make sure they flip. We need to flip the Senate seat here in Ohio. We also need to flip the governor's seat. We do not need Vivek Ramaswamy nowhere near
That's right.
the governor.
That's right.
He's not for black people. He's
He
not
sure
for
is
poor
not.
people. He's not for the victims of the Epstein files. He's a liar.
Yes.
He is endorsed by liars. So a liar. So we do not need him here. We need to flip Maine. We need to flip North Carolina.
Come on,
And
Will.
we need to flip
That's
Texas.
right.
We need
That's
to get
right.
the Senate back.
That's
Okay,
right.
so we're going to be talking about that.
Yes.
Also, the last thing, we had the resignation. Another one bit the dust. Another incompetent who left the White House, and Tulsi Gabbard, of course, she resigned.
Yes.
And she gave the reason that her husband, because he had the cancer diagnosis, that's why she resigned. If he has cancer, if he has cancer, then we're praying for him.
Yes.
However, I don't believe that's the reason why she resigned. I want to find out where she found out about this diagnosis.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden she resigned. You know, I don't believe it for a second, because simply for the fact this administration lies.
Yes.
And we know that there was friction between Tulsi Gabbard and this president. She basically threw him under the bus because at a committee meeting, she disclosed that she gave information to the president and administration, and then they came out later on saying we didn't have no information, we didn't know what was going on. One
Wow.
incompetent against another incompetent.
Yes.
And so he really threw him under the bus, so I'm sure he wasn't happy with that. So you don't know what to believe. Again, we're praying for her husband, but again, no love lost that she's gone. Never should have been up there anyway. So we get out, we need
That's
to get
right.
Caroline Levitt out of there. We need to get Cash Patel out of there. We need to get Pete Hesleth out of there. The Lord will have his way.
Yes, he
So
will.
we just keep on praying. So black community, we need to get educated. We need to go out and vote. Heads up to Georgia, voting the 7 women there.
Yes.
And so we just got to keep
Georgia.
the momentum going. We got to keep Ossoff in office. So we just got to do this. And we're talking from a political standpoint here tonight. That's what this show is about. We don't do
Yes.
this on our church page, but this is what needs to happen if we're going to try to bring this country back, if it's not already too late on that.
Very good,
All right.
Will.
So that's
Very
our
well
show
said.
for tonight. Don't forget to join us Sunday morning at 11:30 on Facebook for our morning worship on True Apostolic Holiness Church. Next Tuesday, we'll be in the 10th division of Psalms at 7 p.m. for On Fire for Jesus, our Bible
Yes.
study. And then next Thursday at 6:30, join us here as we do another history education of Black history and also current events. All right, for Sharr, I'm Will. This is Will and Sharr in the Face of Truth. God bless you, and until next time.
And we wanted to point out to you guys, we got a new flyer up in the Face of Truth, and we hope that you all like that. And we're just glad that you came and joined us tonight. Thank you very much. Be blessed and have a good evening.